Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the snowy weather that we're having. I know some people are having a blizzard depending on where you live in the world. Hopefully you plan ahead and you don't have to go out to get any groceries or anything like that. So today we're painting these red roses and a crystal pitcher, which I will also refer to as a vase, since that is how I'm using it. So here I have outlined the basic shapes of the roses as ovals and suggested some leaf shapes that are hanging over the sides of the vase. And I've also drawn a rough hourglass shape outline of the vase. Now I'm going into the red paint and I'm coloring in the red ovals. This is just going to get an initial layer of color down, and I'm sort of thinking about where these petals are as well, kind of mapping them out a little bit with my brushwork, but mostly I'm just painting a basic bowl shape. So here you can see I'm taking the edge of my brush, turning it sideways, and sort of thinking about some of these petal shapes and just sort of hinting or suggesting them with my brush. And if you're wondering what that wire is that's kind of wiggling off to the side of my easel, I just attached a coat hanger to my easel and put a little clip on it, and sometimes I like to hang reference photos off the side there so I can view them pretty easily. So now we're going into our black paint and I'm mixing it with a little bit of red, and we are hollowing out the center of that bowl. So you can think of rose shapes as the shape of a bowl or a saucer, and they have a core in the center from which the stamens originate, and also all of the petals. And as your rose sits for several days, the petals will start to fall to the sides of the rose and open up more. And also different roses are shaped different ways, but these roses are a bigger variety and they're not so tightly, the petals are not so tightly packed together. So we are trying to find the shadows within this rose. So here I have gone into my green paint and I've added a bit of white, and I am blocking in the shape of these leaves with this green color. And this is my first pass going with these green leaves, so I will be going back into them a couple more times. I'm probably going to do about 3 shades of green here. So that's all I'm really doing here, is just blocking in the initial leaf shapes. So you can see that I have already gone into the black and darkened my green somewhat, and trying to make some of these leaves a little bit darker in places where they might have shadow hitting them and they're not receiving so much light. So here I am adding more black to my green mixture and picking out some more of those shadow spots, places where the leaves are peeking out from under the rose and they're not getting a lot of light. So I am just being very painterly with these leaves. I am not painstakingly trying to outline them exactly like the reference. So I'm just trying to keep it painterly and just make whatever shape looks pretty good to me. And here I'm going back into my white and trying to pick out some more of these highlights. This leaf right here seems to be the leaf that is getting the most light. It's up front and center, and the rest of them are more in shadow and sort of hiding under these roses. So here I'm taking the side of my brush, or the edge, and I'm just suggesting some little veins that are running through this leaf right here. So all of the leaves have a vein that runs through the center that attaches to the little stem underneath. Okay, so I thought this was a good spot to go ahead and put the rose stems in. So just trying to gauge where the center of the rose would be, going down into this vase. And I've used a lot more black in my green mixture to darken the value of these stems. And I also want to suggest some greenery that has fallen to the bottom of this vase. And usually in vases you will have a bunch of leaves in there peeking through, and in my end result I would like the suggestion of a clump of leaves to be showing through the crystal vase on the different facets. So now I'm taking the same dark mixture, that dark green, and applying it under the rose where the leaves are getting the most shadow. It's really nice to have some good contrast of lights and darks in your painting. It just makes the painting pop a lot more off of the canvas if you can find places to put dark shadows to contrast the lighter sections. Also, for those who don't know, red and green are complementary colors, so they are always going to look really good together. So here I'm just going back into my red paint and building up a little bit more layers, because acrylics are usually pretty transparent, depending on which brand you use too. I know you can get some golden paints, or some of these more expensive brands are a little bit more opaque, but just for learning, it's good to probably just use some really basic Liquitex. So I'm just filling in the vase and the background with 2 different shades of gray. So I hope you enjoyed the snow footage. I really like to watch the snow fall, especially when it's in big flakes like that. It's just very calming, and I think when it snows and the roads are impassable, it's a reminder for all of us to just slow down and rest. And I think winter is a season of rest. So here I've begun laying in this tic-tac-toe lattice-like pattern and just adjusting the different facets on the crystal here and putting in some white highlights and going through and adding more at the top. So this crystal kind of reminded me of the sphere at Epcot's center. I don't know if you can see the similarities. There's a bunch of little diamonds and triangles. So I'm just going back in and punching up the highlights with white and just being very painterly and loose with it, keeping my edges kind of fuzzy. I don't want anything really harsh, and acrylics sometimes can take on a hard plasticky look or cutout, and I don't want that with this painting, so I'm trying to make it look more like oils, keeping everything soft, and going around these roses, going around the tips and adding some orange highlights with that cad red light, which is really just like a really bright orange. So I played around more with these leaves, and I decided I wanted to add more contrast and more mystery to this section and fill it up with more leaves just to give it more shadows and contrast. And I'm not sure if I like it better how it was before or if I like how it looks now. I think I like them both for different reasons. So now I'm just cleaning up the edges of the painting, going over that background one more time, and I'm pretty happy with how this painting turned out overall. It was a pretty quick painting. So it's kind of a push-pull between the shadows and the light on the facets of this crystal. So just going back in with gray, going back in with my white mixture, going back and forth, trying to accent the facets on the crystal. And here is the finished painting, and I hope you like it. And stick around to the end for more snow footage. Also, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe now, and you can see more content like this. And also, if you head over to my page, I did a similar painting with roses that you can watch if you're interested. I also have a few other rose paintings. Thank you, and have a good day.